All right. Good morning.
Good morning, Mary.
We're here with the one and only Captain Cyrus Garden, Cyrus Brewster. We're going to be planting some garlic this morning. Thank you, Dad, for coming out to teach us how it's done. This is the bed we built the other week for it.
Yeah.
Take it away.
Before we get to planting, let's say a few words about preparing the soil. Now, you got a brand new bed, so you have no weed problems. It's probably nice and fluffy, so I can stick my hand down into it. But most people will have a garden that's been cropped through the summer. And unless you're a magician, you've got a lot of weed seeds in it. So the first subject is weed control. And for me, weed control starts just as soon as that ground is bare.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully by September 1st, you've got a space that's going to have garlic, and you've got to clear it. Then the weed control starts. You cultivate it, top 3 inches, on a good day. Any weed movements that come up will be destroyed.
Mm-hmm.
Give it a week or 10 days, and if it doesn't rain, give it a little water after the second day. The object is, between then and planting time, you want to germinate as many seeds in the top 3 to 4 inches as you possibly can. It's pre-emergent type stuff.
You want the seed.
You're not using any chemicals. You're just using.
Pardon the noise in the background, by the way. There's tree work being done. So, Dad, you want weeds to be growing.
It's going to go like this. All right, you want to mix the stuff in to start with, all right? We're going to do that today before we plant. All right. Now, you've got brand new soil. But if this was summer soil, you would look down there, you see full of little white hairs. Every one of those white hairs is a major problem. That's a weed.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you've got a month to do it, you can do 3 cycles of irrigate, germinate, and kill the weeds. Okay. Enough on that subject.
Now, Dad, what if you're working in a raised bed where you really don't have a lot of weeds? Do you still have to start that in September, early September?
If you're really on top of things all summer long, this is not a problem. I'm just doing this for people who have
ground beds for sure.
Certainly in ground beds, or if you let a bed go.
Yes.
You know, the old saying was, if 1 year's seeding is 7 to 10 years weeding. So every time a single plant goes to seed, you've got thousands of weed seeds just sitting there waiting to be brought up to the heat and germinate.
Roger that.
Okay. The next thing is, and you don't need to do it here because this is a brand new bed. But all beds compact over time. Now, raised beds, we don't walk on them, and we think they're good forever. They're not. With the rains and stuff, it settles and settles and settles. You need to get oxygen all the way down.
Oxygen all the way down.
Yep, and you have some bad stuff that grows in anaerobic conditions like bad nematodes. So, at least every other year, I recommend a deep forking. Now, you definitely don't want to turn anything over, all right? You simply start in the middle of the bed, you drive your fork down, and you rock it back and forth. Now, look how fluffy that is. We don't need to do that here.
Correct.
But after several years, or if it's a much lower bed, you get down 3 or 4 inches, it's going to be pretty hard.
Oh, yes.
And you want to open it up so the roots have no problems, but more importantly, if you have good oxygen and good drainage. Okay. Next thing before you plant garlic is you want to have it very fluffy. By fluffy, I mean you take your hand and you push in,
Come back in.
and you can go right up to your knuckles. Because that's how you're going to plant this garlic, okay?
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to be fooling around with dibbles and making holes and all that.
Mm-hmm.
It takes forever. I mean, this is a tiny garden. We're going to
This
put
is a bare hands approach is what you do.
Absolutely.
I love that.
This is going to be less than 200 plants.
Mm-hmm. This is a
Anywhere
4 by
you
8
want to. You're
bed.
going to get it done in no time.
Mm-hmm.
But I just planted over 2,000 garlic plants, and I'm not.
Over 2,000. Did you hear that?
And I am not going to fool around with digging holes and all that.
No.
So I forked my beds, and then I had them available since July, so they're virtually weed-free.
So forked and fluffed.
Yep. Now you don't have to do that here, but I always go over my beds and fluff up that top. Oh, most important for garlic, most important. Fertilizer.
Yes.
Garlic is a very heavy feeder. If you skimp on the garlic, you're going to be one of those proud YouTube gardeners who, you know, they're so proud of that little skimpy little garlic they pulled. Oh, we made some garlic. Garlic is supposed to be this big.
Mm-hmm.
And it will be if you give it heavy feeding. Which is why Mary put a good layer of organic compost on here.
Mm-hmm.
Not compost.
Compost, then fertilizer.
Compost and fertilizer. Compost is not fertilizer, okay?
No, never
don't
mix the two.
Get that out of your head.
Or mix the two, don't mix them up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Compost is, you can hardly do too much of it.
No.
But it's more of a soil amendment,
Yes.
depending on how you make it.
I think about it, yeah.
If you're really good at making it,
Mm-hmm.
you can have some Fenty. It's fertilizer.
But
right?
for the regular guys like us, the lazy composters, it's a soil it's soil. It's gold, the gold of soil, and fertilizer is food.
It makes the most beautiful aerated soil, and you know, it's the crumbly texture, wonderful.
Yes.
But you got to fertilize it. Put fertilizer down. Now, what I use and Mary's using is a homemade recipe. It's not my recipe. If you look online, simply Google complete organic fertilizer
Mm-hmm.
and Mr. Solomon, just the name Solomon. It's all over the internet. It's a basic recipe.
Yep.
The biggest ingredient is seed meal, which is nitrogen, kelp, and bone meal, with then a few additives. I put a nice heavy layer down and mix it in the top 2 or 3 inches a week or two at least before I'm going to plant, which is plenty. These things are going to sit in there, and they're going to just they're going to send out some roots, and then they're going to go dormant. And that stuff is going to wash down so that when they pop up in the spring, which is the first thing up,
Mm-hmm.
you'll see these through the last of the snow coming up.
Ah.
And then you let them get about 6 inches high, and you give them another hit with something on blood meal, which is double the nitrogen
Mm-hmm.
of seed meal.
So the blood meal is straight nitrogen rather than
Well, it's
the
more
entire
straight
fertilizer.
nitrogen.
Mm-hmm.
You can use the other. Just do it a couple of times.
Mm-hmm.
You know, don't be afraid. All of these things are natural ingredients. They're going to sit there if they're not taken up. So it's not like putting a chemical down there where you're going to burn something. You're
Right.
not worried about that.
All natural ingredients.
Okay, I think we're done with preparation.
Okay.
So the way I plant is I cut a piece of masonite or luan or whatever,
Check
something
this out.
thin, and mark out on a 6-inch grid.
6 inches.
I do mine at 7 inches merely because I have a lot of them,
Mhm.
and it's easier to cultivate.
Yep.
It'd be more easy to cultivate, but 6 is fine. A garlic plant, the root zone is not going to be any bigger than that. When you dig up a garlic plant, the roots almost go straight down.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like a tomato or an eggplant or
Which
something.
go
like that.
out. Yeah.
All out. Basically, you take a equilateral triangle and you lay it out, and it's what it's going to look like.
Look
is
at that.
you've got rows this way, rows that way, and rows that way. So when you cultivate, you've got your narrow cultivator.
Mm-hmm.
Day 1, you go this way. 3 or 4 days later, you come and you do it on this diagonal, and then you go that.
And by cultivating, he means the fork that you're going through to keep the weeds out of there. By
Well,
creating these neat rows. Right, here we go.
Not something this wide.
Yeah, that's a little too wide.
I
But
meant
by
my
creating
own- I
these
meant
neat
my own.
rows,
You
it
know
makes
those
it very
hand-
easy to
hand
weed them.
scratchers?
Yes.
Buy the cheapest one you can find because you want to be able to bend it. You
Yeah.
want that cheap steel.
Uh-huh.
Take the handle off, get a long broomstick,
And attach it.
attach it,
I love that.
and then you can reach. And it's a long way across, so
Yeah.
diagonal, right?
Yeah.
And you want it like very narrow.
Yeah. And now, Dad, for someone, this is large scale for me even for now. You have much, like a million times this, but for the smaller kitchen gardener who's maybe giving, 3 by 3 feet or even less to their garlic, you don't necessarily need something like this. What you need to know is the spacing. So what we have here is that they're 6 inches apart on diagonal.
And 6
So
inches
this-
in all directions.
In all directions, exactly.
This
So
plant
that's
here has a circle of 6 inches around it.
exactly. So what you need to know is that's how you're spacing them,
Yeah.
6 inches
You can
apart.
do it any
You
way
can
you
mark
want
it
to.
any way you want.
This, for me, this is the fastest, and it lays it out like the, what's the Normandy cemetery.
Yes, soldiers.
So,
but those are dead
For
soldiers.
me, it's all in the labor of cultivation. You got,
Yes.
you know, several hundred feet of 4-foot bed, all in garlic, and it's got oddly spacing. It's very difficult to efficiently weed it.
Yes.
So anyway, this is what we do. Start at one end. And then I take some lime.
Now again, this bed has already been fed with the fertilizer that we spoke
This
with.
is just a drop of lime that has nothing, it's not going to change a thing.
You're marking it.
This is the
You're
marking,
marking your spaces
right?
this way.
And I- Well, it would be easier if you... Easier with two people, one working down each side,
Sure.
so you don't have to walk around.
But you just planted 2,000 garlic, so I'm sure a few more won't kill you.
No, I'm just saying it's getting a lot faster to two people.
Yes.
And then you're going to lose a line because these holes are going to line up over this last line.
Yep.
All right. That indexes the plant.
Look, and then we know
According to my
exactly where to
calc-
put the garlic cloves. See? It's all marked out.
According to my calculation, you should about just under 200 plants in this little bed. This is a 12. No, it's not a 12-foot bed.
No, this is a 4 by 8.
Oh.
I think I calculated under 200. This is what we're planting, people. This is the garlic. This is what you call seed garlic. This is really just garlic cloves. So what we did here is, this is hard nut garlic. This is Dad's that he grew last year. He's gifted it to me, and so we pulled them apart so that we have single cloves. And this is the way, it's as simple as putting these in the ground. This side's gonna go down, this side's gonna go up, you'll see. Okay, I'm gonna call this part 1. I'm gonna stop the video now and then we'll do part 2 of the actual planting.